All right, today we're talking about what happens when you have an injury and you never quite recover, or you're slow to recover the strength after that injury. So this often happens with lengthy injuries or like ACL injuries or surgery. Ankle injuries is a common one. So talk about that. So really, asymmetry. It's basically when we're favoring the side that's not injured. And anyone who has been, this is more common than we'd like to admit. Anyone who has had one of these, you hear people say, that never quite felt right afterward. Why does it happen? So a couple things. One, the strength, maybe the mobility, maybe the power. I've talked in past videos about the hierarchy of athletic kind of development, where maybe you did get the strength back, but you didn't get the power and the explosiveness back. It's that other layer that just never quite got back to where it should be for a number of reasons. It can be, that's a whole other topic for another video, so it just never quite felt right. Or pain. It hurts to put full pressure on it. So our bodies are amazing compensators. Humans are amazing compensators, where if something hurts, we are going to just subtly, not even thinking about it, shift weight off of whatever part of our joint hurts and not fully put pressure on it when we're walking. Because of that our body kind of relearns this new way to walk, or new kind of movement pattern. It's not just with walking. This happens with running, planting on your leg, cutting, squatting, you name it. And we relearn a different side. And then as a result, we end up having muscle atrophy, where we learn this new way. So we're using new muscles, we're not using the old muscles, and it's a kind of a bad cycle. Or lack of confidence. So there was a pretty big study that came out, this is about 10 years ago now, looking at football players who injured their ACLs and looking at outcomes. And less than half returned to their sport. And the biggest reason that they didn't return to their sport was they were not confident. They felt like they couldn't trust their knee and their leg. And this is after people who went through full round of rehab. It's not like these are people that didn't finish out their rehab, and maybe that's why we can say, yeah, they're not confident because you didn't do what you're supposed to do. No, these are people who went through a rehab progression and months of it. The issue with imbalances are they're often, we can't detect them. So back in the day when I got out of PT school, motion analysis was a big deal. So we would, video somebody squatting. Let's say you had ACL surgery on one side, and we video how you're squatting, we video how you're planting and cutting on your leg and running, or whatever, whatever you need to do to get back to your sport. And we used to be able to, we still can do it, but what we used to do is we used to slow down by frame and just see if they were subtly favoring one side or the other. What we found is that's not as sensitive as we would like it to be. Whereas a lot of times we could say, oh yeah, that looks good. It looks good to the naked eye. It looks good to, even slow motion video. But what we're finding with new technology, things like force plates that are more readily available in clinics to use and to test people, is that there is still an imbalance there. And it's not just saying like, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The issue is these imbalances are a big deal still. They are there. We're finding more and more that, the rate of second injury after like an ACL surgery is unfortunately still very big. Like, we may think that we're good at rehabbing them, but we're showing on, testing of the quad, which is another topic for another time, isokinetic testing, and showing that there's deficits in quad strength. There's, like I said, changes in how much force somebody's putting through their leg. And we think that those are contributing to the fact that the ACL second injury rate is not getting any better. Second injury meaning maybe a person either re-tears their ACL or they tear the ACL on the other leg. So just for an example, this picture is a little bit dark and I apologize. But jumping and landing on a force plate, so those are just the two plates that are kind of on the ground there. My hands are kind of demonstrating where the plates would be. You're standing and you're doing a counter movement jump. So you drop down as fast as you can and then explode straight up in the air as high as you can. And it's looking at the force output on one side versus the other. It just kind of gives an idea of how the athlete moves. Not necessarily testing their strength, it's how they move and how they can be explosive. So here's an example of someone who has had ACL surgery, and you can see the right leg is indicated by the orange red lines, dark deep red lines on the I guess that's not red, that's orange, on the force trace, and then the blue side is the left side. And this person had ACL surgery on their right leg. And what you can see is they shift their weight off. That's actually a freeze frame where I have it circled in yellow there. That's actually what's happening at the bottom of the squat, where they squat down very quickly to be able to jump up. And what that's showing is that person doesn't really trust their leg to rapidly decelerate on it. And so they're not putting full weight to kind of get down in the bottom of that squat. And then as a result, their jumping up is going to be a little bit different. They're using a different kind of strategy. It's not symmetric. And then just to make sure that this wasn't just a one trial issue, like, that people, may have one jump that's not that great and the rest of them look good. I ended up testing this athlete a couple times, and you're seeing the same thing each time. So understanding that this is something that they would look, if I was just looking at videoing them, I probably would not pick up on this asymmetry, but here we can see it, and we can keep people in rehab longer. We can do things that are working on kind of specific to deceleration, to being able to use that leg a little bit more effectively and to get it to where it needs to be. If you're interested, I have another video on acceleration and deceleration. It's up on the YouTube channel, so feel free to check that out, and have a good week. See you all next week.